Our players are getting ready. Getting some pregame actions. Looks like we got a Gemstone Caverns in play for our Aang player. Aang at the crossroads. So at the top left, we have David on Thras Akiri. Really just Bant plus 2 cards in red, but abusing the power of Thrasios in the command zone. Your classic Derevi combos, Emil loops, and also Bora Breeze Caller, as we see David come down with Birds of Paradise and Mox Amber. After a fetch for a tropical island, that'll be a pass of the turn over to Aang at the crossroads player. This mono combo deck just wants to land Aang after a ETB doubler effect and find a bunch of clones and put a bunch of copies of Aang into play and accrue a bunch of value and win the game. Sort of a one-stop shop for just winning the game, but is able to retool and re-up the value even post a counterspell or something like that. Delighted Halfling will be the pass of the turn after the land drop. And we'll take it to Lamar on Iron Man. Pair of Iron Man players in 3rd and 4th seat here. And we'll start with an Urza Saga. And that land come down was Great Hall of the Citadel for our Aang player. These two Iron Men players are playing slightly different decks. As we've seen Arid Mesa fetch and pass come down. One of them, I believe Lamar, I'll get that for you in just a second, is on sort of stormy combos with Aetherflux Reservoir, in addition to classic Red-Blue Breach. Our 4th-seat player is not just all in on Breach, as we'll have a Mystic Remora into a Dryad Arbor land creature. So very strong here against the pair of Iron Man players. And a pass over to Aang at the crossroads, who will play nothing and pass. That is Josh up in the top right corner. And over to Lamar in the bottom right. Will be a Wooded Foothills after a Urza Saga tick up to 2. I believe there was a potentially Thundering Falls come down, our 4th-seat player in the bottom left corner of your screen. So a little surveil there. And it looks like I had them flipped in my mind. Robert in 4th seat is our player that is on the Aetherflux Reservoir version of Iron Man. Just a simple 1-card combo as we see a Goblin Welder come down, post a Wooded Foothills fetch Volcanic Island. That'll just be a pass of the turn. Pair of Iron Man's very valuable cards here, as it looks like Command Tower into a creature that we're all going to read. Shuri, Wakandan Inventor, looks to be the play. Which artifact spells cost 1 less to cast, and then target artifact you control becomes a copy of a second as an activated ability on Shuri. Dave will go to his turn, pay 1 for the Mystic Remora, keep it alive. Here's 2 mana. For more creatures. Biomancer's Familiar. Looks to me a little hard to see. I think this is a Devoted Druid, I believe. Or, sorry, not Devoted Druid. Bloom Tender. Bloom Tender with a little bit of something on the top there, but looks like that'll just be the turn, and we'll pass over to our Aang player, Tundra. Will be the land for turn, so 4 mana here. And looks like an Elvish Spirit Guide exiled for green. And here's 5 mana. Here's an Aang. And Aang with no doubler inherently is certainly a little bit weaker than a lot of other things that could be done at this point, but Aang will look at the top 5 cards, put a creature of CMC 4 into play. That's sort of the rub here. And it looks like a Resto, Restoration Angels, to flicker Aang. Again, it's not impossible to combo off with just Aang, but it is very difficult. This looks to be turn 2. Or sorry, turn 3 for our Aang player. Their turn 3. And another Aang trigger. We'll go onto the stack and we'll resolve another 5 cards to look at for a CMC4 creature. And it looks like an Ennis debate moderator from Secrets of Strixhaven. We'll turn up the crowd a little bit so you can hear what they're talking about. Looks like it'll be an Exile Aang, and the Aang will come back at the end step. Yeah, it will just be Aang. A little bit of audio issue there. Hope that got fixed. And looks like we're getting... So it looks like the Ennis will have exiled the Restoration Angel. Restoration Angel will come back and flicker Aang itself immediately. Just another Restoration Angel effect here. And again, the flickers are good. Do not get it twisted. However, certainly a little more difficult without a doubler. And here looks like to be a spark double coming into play. Spark double specifically will be not legendary. So there will be 2 of those in play currently. 2 Aangs, 1 not being legendary. There are some potential for whiffs, as is sort of expected to be the case when it comes to your top deck kind of just big guesser type decks, but this deck is a deck that does not whiff very often with 60 plus creatures, very common. Looks like that's a Chameleon Master of Disguise who keeps his name, Chameleon Master of Disguise, so has 3 permanents that have the Aang ability currently. So no sacrifice of Aang yet. Or of a clone. Looks like a flesh duplicate copy of Aang. Yep. So flesh duplicate will go to the graveyard. There will be another Aang trigger. We'll see where this leads us. Again, really just trying to find some sort of doubler for Aang is sort of the big ticket item here. Looks like some alternate print card, but a little hard to see what that one is, but it looks to be either another flicker card or probably not another clone here in white, so looks like we're all reading here. It looks like they said Jackdaw Savior, so that card is part of the infinite version of Aang here. So Jackdaw Savior, when it or another creature with flying dies, return another creature card with lesser mana value. And there's a handful of cards here that will give flying to your Aang copies. And looks like that'll be it with the Jackdaw Savior. Again, a little risky depending on what's in hand for our Aang player here. And looks like that will be the turn. And we'll pass over to Lamar on Iron Man in the Aetherfluxless version. A lot to talk about with his Aang deck. Could have got any combination of Preston the Vanisher, Bernard Ginger Sculptor. Right now looking for something to give flying to all the creatures. So that's sort of where it lands here. And here's Mountain for turn from Lamar. And here's just 5 for Iron Man. Looks like Iron Man will just come straight in to our Aang player Josh. Potentially. Looks like it'll come over to Davis. So when Iron Man attacks, you'll create a treasure token that he may sacrifice a non-creature artifact. And if you do, you search for an artifact. 1 CMC plus that sacrifice artifact. So it looks like that will be the case here. As we'll get out a Torpor Orb for 2 mana, sacrificing, I believe, the Soul Ring. That might be a Mana Vault for the 5 mana to cast Iron Man. But Torpor Orb nonetheless, printing from the big score. Not allowing creatures entering the battlefield to trigger abilities, which will be key in neutralizing the Aang player, who is certainly, with the outright plan to just cast Aang as soon as possible, I would assume has something up the sleeve in order to flicker. And pass over to our second Iron Man player in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, our 4-seat Robert, taking the last turn 3 of the cycle. Robert will play a Seed of the Synod as a land for turn. Already got a discount on artifacts thanks to Shuri, Wakandan Inventor. Let's see where we can go from here. For Iron Man, no way to get it out currently. Hard to see what's in hand right now. Looks like maybe a Candelabra. A little hard to see. Game has changed a lot post Torpor Orb, really post Aang pushing very early there. And those will pay 3 mana. We'll try to find out what card to cast, but again, If you're just joining the stream, the video, I'd like to welcome you to MindBreak Magic cEDH event number 2. Take 2, let your boogaloo. We have $400 worth of prize pool. We have 32 players signed up here today, and we are glad to be here at the Ript Zone in Milledgeville, Georgia. And a classic thank you to the Ript Zone for hosting us here. As David will draw 2 cards off the Mystic Remora trigger, Chromatic Star among them. Couple of artifacts down, and we will pass right on over to David on Thras Akiri. Looks like it will be a Kinnan for 2 mana. 2 mana was paid for the Mystic Remora, keeping that card in play. Gaia's Cradle comes in, that's 4 mana. Birds of Paradise makes 2. You have 6 in the pool right now. And we're going to make sure we make the correct amount of mana here. Here's a Smothering Tithe. So floating a green and a white. Smothering Tithe enters the stack. That Pyroblast in the hand of our bottom right hand player is not looking too good. But maybe this can deal with another permanent. Mystic Remora, Kinnan among them. Looks like that's it. Just a Smothering Tithe will resolve. So David continuing to accrue value here with the Smothering Tithe, Mystic Remora sitting in play, Kinnan in play for free. Mox Amber, that's online, tapping for 2 currently. So a lot to love if you're in the position of David in our seat 1 up in the top left corner of your screen. But we'll pass on over to Ang at the Crossroads, our player Josh, who will not pay 2 mana for the Smothering Tithe, netting a treasure for David. And we'll be on Josh's turn, the second turn 4 of the cycle. Ang at the Crossroads will not pay the 2 mana and try to find a way here, hopefully to flicker Ang. Now, a doubler is not in play, however, a Jackdaw Savior is in play, which allows you to sacrifice your clones and go grab other clones back from the graveyard as long as they have less converted mana cost. Flesh Duplicate is in the graveyard, so a pretty easy task to make that happen. So 1 clone will net 2 triggers, which is effectively a doubler, a la Thrumming Stone, etc. Cards like that. So trying to figure out how to go from here, but in our seat 3 player Lamar, in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, there is a Pyroblast that we can see on camera here. So potentially not a lot of safe things to do here, but Delighted Halfling sure will help if it's something that would like to not be countered. And looks like that's the Families card from Spider-Man to allow our Ang player to tap their creatures for mana separately than they would already be able to do. Supportive Parents is the card. Tap 2 untap creatures, add 1 color. So great card to see here. However, that card can be countered, although I'm not sure you'd want to do it. Delighted Halfling was likely a concession made because there's nothing around. Looks like the Goblin Welder swapped the vaults and the treasure. That was potentially the pass of the turn, and it seems like it was. So not able to make use of 4 available mana from our Ang player Josh, and over to Lamar. Handful of good cards in the hand, to include some counterspell backup, a Simian Spirit Guide among them that I can see. Here's 4. Float one. Let's see what we got here. A yellow card from this terrible set. Repurposing Bay. No. 2 and a blue, leaving 1 floating for an artifact. 2 mana, tap it, sacrifice another artifact. Search your library for an artifact +1. So basically another Iron Man effect that is only activated at sorcery speed instead of a timing condition on declare attacks from Iron Man. Here's 1 and 2, and potentially could be back to using Repurposing Bay to grab another 2-drop. And looks like that will be the case here. Sacrificing the Mana Vault, going equal to +1 sacrificed for a 2 CMC card. Let's see what we'll get here. We'll take a look. We got Liquid Metal Torque, Talisman, Grinding Station, Grim Monolith for more mana, a Cursed Totem. That would be very good here, and it looks like that will be the case. Chainsaw, an interesting addition in this deck. When it enters, deal 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. And then you can equip it. Whenever a creature dies, you put a counter on the chainsaw and you can equip it, and the creature equipped will get +X+0, where X is the number of counters on chainsaw. So, very fun card. Saw some amount of standard play. And looks like we're going swinging. And Cursed Totem Torpor Orb in play. I guess another reason why our Aang player was not too keen on making more Aang copies, I suppose. And looks like that will be an Iron Man. We'll make the treasure. Potentially sacrifice, and it will be. Another 1-drop. Looking to come into play. Ideally something that makes mana. Color mana here for the Goblin Welder, potentially. Or excuse me, that would be Goblin Engineer. Well, looks like we'll grab a Soul Ring anyways. Goblin Welder still be able to abuse this game. And looks like the Iron Man was going once again at David, so that is 8 commander damage over there, David, in the top left. And Lamar in the bottom right will pass to Robert in the bottom left, and Robert will take his turn. Robert Bob, big upstanding member of the community around here. Great guy. Done a lot to kind of help foster the scene around, and we're very happy to have him here. As we'll see a Scalding Tarn is a land for turn. Pay 1 life, sacrifice it. We'll go grab a land. Again, Robert is on the Aetherflux version, I believe. Let me take a double check. No, not on the Aetherflux version of this deck, so a little less Storm, a little more all-in for Breach. And a typed land, so I'll assume that's a Volcanic Island proxy. We are very proxy friendly here at the MindBreak Magic cEDH events, as long as they are what's considered high quality proxies, but not counterfeits. So sort of in the vein of not paper in front of a land, or not a Sharpie on a basic land. So something everyone can recognize pretty instantly, and shuffles correctly. So it looks like a Volcanic Island will be the fetch here from our Scalding Tarn on Robert's turn, the bottom left corner of your screen. This is the last turn 4 of the cycle. And an Esoteric Duplicator is the play. 3 mana, discounted 1 from Shuri. Whenever you sacrifice this card or another artifact, you may pay 2. And if you do at the beginning of the next end step, create a token copy of that artifact. So filter the star. I believe that's what's going to happen here. And that is true. Filter the star to the Clark Clan Ironworks. draw the 1 from the star, and now we have an esoteric duplicator trigger. Looks like there might be some response to what's going on here. So here's 2 mana, Mox Amber, and then all 3 treasures from all 3 players not paying the 1, and T'Challa, maybe? It is. Flash, whenever a player draws their second card, you draw a card. So looks like not necessarily caring about the draw card, just want to accrue more value. David does. So esoteric duplicator potentially could pay the 2. Looks like no more responses. That trigger is good to continue to go to the stack, and we'll see if that is the case, or we'll have a token copy of the Chromatic Star. Very interesting. Very interesting card to add to this deck, addition to this deck. As it will just allow you to continue to chain these cheaper artifacts, your Ichor Wellsprings, your Chromatic Stars, etc. Allow you to go up in card parity against your opponents here for when you have a Cart Clan Ironworks in play, effectively nothing. So it's very, very cool to see here. But it does come back at the end step, so the next end step. So just kind of talking about how this works and see if there's potentially anything happening on the stack. It looks like the trigger's still in the stack. I think David said that he's good for that. Looks like no payment, but will be an Iron Man. Oh, hard to argue with that play. Iron Man for 4 mana with the Shuri discounting. This will not receive a response here. So a Chrome Mox is the play. Potentially imprint nothing, but here comes a Mystic Remora trigger. King T'Challa. And it looks like it will be an attack. Maybe some amount of responses before attacks here. Or maybe just some Talk No Jutsu. David has already taken a significant amount of life loss from the other Iron Man player at the table. 8 damage alone. And it looks like we'll go down a treasure, making 2 mana. Again, the Kinnan once on the table. And it looks like a Source of Plowshares, likely in the beginning of combat step instead of combat. So a gain of 3 life, or excuse me, a gain of 4 life for Robert, our Iron Man player. However, not the ideal exchange that he would have wanted in that situation, I'm sure. Oh, okay. In response to the swords, it looks like it was a sacrifice of Iron Man to Cart Clan Ironworks. And then pay the 2 to make a token copy of Iron Man that will come in on the end step. And looks like we have some more removal on Otawara on the Cursed Totem at the end step. Potentially at the end step. Could again be inside of combat. It's a little hard to tell right now. No red up, as I mentioned there was some amount of removal, but there is a Simian Spirit Guide here. Pyroblast looks like it could be targeting Potentially King T'Challa or a Kennen. I would be betting man. I would say a Kennen. Maybe even the Esoteric Duplicator, but it looks like it will be the Kennen. So that is in response to the Otawara. Otawara will bounce the Curse Totem. So there it goes. Looks like potentially one card in hand for Robert, our active player, in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Our seat 4. And potentially just waiting, maybe in post-combat main, see if there is anything else to do before the end step when Iron Man will come back to play. No land drop for turn. A Scalding Tarn has already been played, so sacrificing the Chromatic Star with 0 imprint underneath for the 2 colorless mana from Cart Clan Ironworks. The obscure pink card on your screen in the bottom left. Looks like we got an Ultron on the stack here. Artificial Malevolence. So this is in the post-combat main. Whenever another non-token artifact you control enters, you can pay 2. If you do, make a token copy of it. That is not a, and if it's not a creature, it becomes a creature. So this will not be able to double up on the Iron Man tokens, but is still sort of a house. But does continue to sort of improve on the ability to make more things and clutter up the board a little bit. So here goes the end step. Here comes the token copy of Iron Man. And Robert will pass the turn over to David up the top left-hand corner of the screen. First thing for turn will be to let the Mystic Remora go. So that will be the case here. And once again, that copy in the bottom right, or correction, bottom left, is a copy of Iron Man, a token copy. So still a 4/4 flyer. Definitely hard to get into when it comes to attackers, but we'll have to see where that goes from here as David will take his turn. Again, Mystic Remora into the bin. We'll draw for turn. And move on to the pre-combat main. Same with a lot of good stuff in play by Biomancers from, or correction, that gold border at the top is tripping me up. A Bloom Tender, Bird's Paradise, Dryad Arbor, King T'Challa, Mox Amber underneath that King T'Challa, 1 treasure, a Smothering Tide. Here's Nakiri, Line Swinger. And again, that is a 2 mana 0/3 that gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. So currently in play, it is +2. But that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at adding to the Gaia's Cradle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my count. Here's an Eldritch Evolution. 3 mana, leaving 2 in the pool. We're going to go get a 5-drop. And looks like the table says there's nothing for it here, so we're going to go look for a 5-drop creature. There's a handful of good ones. Seedborn Muse being the best and the only 5-drop creature run in David's deck. But let's see. I believe Eldritch Evolution allows you to get less than. So with the ability to use this Eldritch Evolution, bring out the Thrasios, there's not a whole lot of negative to grabbing that Seedborn Muse, but looks like it will be an Eternal Witness, potentially for a fish, And it looks like it'll be Eternal Witness for Kennen. That makes a lot of sense here. So we'll continue shuffling. I guess the trigger on the stack maybe must be something that there's a response to here. The ability to grab Eternal Witness seems to be like there's a plan for the Kennen, although certainly having a million mana, Smothering Tithe plus Kennen does lend yourself to doing a whole lot of terrible things to a table. But I guess sort of that's the plan here from what is in hand from David up in our top left corner of your screen, the first turn 5 of this turn cycle as it stands. And if you're just joining us, welcome to round 1 of our MindBreak Magic cEDH Take 2 event. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. And looks like... Oh, the Torpor Orb was the blank on the Eternal Witness. So the Eternal Witness just grabbed and actually got blanked by the Torpor Orb. I didn't see that either, so I certainly do not blame David for not seeing that. Here is a Thrasios cast, and then a Sowing Mycospawn post Bloom Tender. It looks like he went to go search. Probably not kicked, though, if I were to take a guess. But when Sowing Mycospawn is cast, you always search for a land and put it directly into play. So let's see what the grab is here. Potentially a Talon Gates, but it looks like Deserted Temple to untap Gaia's Cradle. You know what, that makes a lot more sense, better than what I was going to do here. I'm glad I don't play this deck. And David looks like he'll be able to untap this Gaia's Cradle, make a ton more mana off of it. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe, post the Cradle activation a second time. So here's 1 and 1. Untap the Cradle. No responses here. Oh, maybe there is. Nope, no responses, just adding the mana once again. Here's 7. Gonna use 4 of it. Thrasios. Hard to beat. Scry 1, then reveal. And it looks like that was a scry to the bottom and a silence revealed, so that will be drawn. So a known silence in the hand of David. Still, there is white mana in play. There is a treasure, so the ability is there. 4 floating mana. Looks like it will all be used. Once again, here we go. Look like a Flusterstorm. Fluster plus silence. It was a little hard to tell. That went a little quick for me. And a pass over to Josh up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Again, another deck that doesn't inherently get shut off by the Torpor Orb, but is incredibly difficult to navigate through. With Aang wanting to grab copies, inflict a bunch of ETBs on the table to make more copies, and then eventually make a bunch of dudes find a way to win from there. Could be potentially time to just start swinging in, as your Torpor Orb player has a 1 blocker and it's a Goblin Welder. So could potentially be the reason. 2 not paid for the Smothering Tithe, so we'll just have Clone. Clone will die with the Torpor Orb, but it is uncounterable. So I guess that's something. Well, I guess it's an as. It does enter as the creature, but will not get an ETB, so. Unsure what creature was chosen. It does not seem like Aang if the creature is long for this world. It potentially could stack up a flyer, Jackdaw Savior, multiple Jackdaw Saviors, very, very good for this deck. Restoration Angels, stuff like that. Or potentially another Delighted Halfling if we want a double pipped worth of mana to be uncountered at Legendary. Looks like we won't have the answer quite yet, and we'll just get to pass the turn over to Lamar. Back on Iron Man, so potentially something needed to be done. Oh, looks like a Goblin Water activation was something that wanted to happen, so we'll make sure that doesn't get missed. No game state actions have been taken since the end step, so nothing impactful to the game. We'll make sure that gets done. So Goblin Water here. I can't imagine seeing anything besides. I was going to say Soul Ring into Mana Vault, but it looks like since Goblin Water can just pick anybody, exchange target artifact to player controls with a target artifact in that player's graveyard. It will be hard to beat, considering that the Esoteric Duplicator does it for other artifacts as well as itself. You know, I think everything got sacrificed to the KCI during that exchange. Is that... That could be the case here. But we'll focus on Lamar's turn and see what happens at the beginning of the next end step. Esoteric Duplicator, Ultron from the Marvel set. Clark Clan Ironworks. Yep, so they are officially saying, it sounds like to me, that all of those artifacts were sacrificed at the time of activation on the stack. They were all paid with the 2 mana generated from themselves with KCI to make a token copy at the beginning of the next end step. Now, Esoteric Duplicator says at the beginning of the next end step, so he'll have to wait a full turn through Lamar's turn to get those tokens back. But looks like it'll be 2 mana from the Soul Ring on Lamar's turn for a Felwar Stone for a Mystic Remora, so could potentially be setting up value, could be potentially setting up to push really hard here in a Iron Man attack. See what we'll chain into. A Felwar Stone chained into a 3-drop is a potential option here. Looks like it'll be a Soul Ring chained into a 2-drop, so could grab an Imposter Mech, Grim Monolith Grinding Station. Iron Man is exact, however, so it has to be a 2-drop. Notably, the Curse Totem, at least pre-combat main phase, was not played back by Lamar, our Iron Man player, in seat number 3 in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, who is currently the active player. Looks like a Lightning Greaves. So want to prevent any sort of messing around with the commander here. So we'll see if this 4 damage gets through. Damage will go through to Davis. That's now 12 commander damage from Lamar's Iron Man. Post-combat main phase, the Lightning Greaves will equip. Goblin Welder activate. And let's see where we go. Potentially a Soul Ring to activate the vehicle, repurposing Bay. But we're talking a lot about Shuri over here. While Shuri does not have mana currently, it does allow a target artifact you control to become a copy of a second you control, except it is not legendary, so. Looks like the Goblin Welder could explore a few options. Potentially will just be Felwar Stone for the Mana Vault or the Soul Ring. Looks like it will be the Vault. Enthusiastic Mechanist in the hand of Lamar here, which discounts artifact spells, but besides that, maybe a Vision Quest. I can't really see a whole lot of what's there. It looks like it will be a Repurposing Bay activation. Once again, we'll take a look at the card. 2 mana, sacrifice another artifact, search the library for an artifact with mana value equal to +1 sacrifice CMC. So a 1-drop getting taken here with 1 mana left in the pool from the Mana Vault activation. Here is a Pithing Needle. Wow, that's pretty good. And we just want to go over Pithing Needle one more time with the crowd. So we'll go over it here. Activated abilities of the name card cannot be played unless they're mana abilities. So let's be careful about pointing over to the other Iron Man, because there's not a lot of activated abilities over there, especially ones that aren't mana abilities like Quark Clan Ironworks. So we'll just have to get in touch with the floor and figure out what the Pithing Needle names. But here comes 2 mana, colorless plus red. And back down for the Cursed Totem. Again, known information there. David with a known Flusterstorm Silence, neither of which are going to do anything here against this Cursed Totem that David already has spent an Otawara on. Looks like that'll be the end step, so we'll go to the start of the end step. Here's a copy of Iron Man, here's a copy of Quark Clan Ironworks, a copy of Ultron, and a copy of Esoteric. Or Eccentric. This card has got words. The Esoteric Duplicator. I was right the first time. Go me. On to the turn. Looks like 2 mana to be paid. So no Smothering Tithe, if I see that correctly. Here comes 4. Trigger. Make it the artifact. We'll make a treasure. Will we continue chaining 4 mana on the Quark Clan Ironworks? There's currently only one 5 mana spell, a 5 mana artifact that can be searched up, and it's a good one. It's Ugin's Nexus. With Ultron out, we'll continue to make copies of Ugin's Nexus. Potentially not. Potentially just saying no. We do have the treasure here. Maybe the worry is the Cursed Totem, but this is not an activated ability on the Ultron. I would not call it an activated ability. Well, none of the rest of them are creatures. I would call all of these triggered abilities, so I'm not sure. Unless the line includes Shuri, in order to change one artifact into a copy of another. But if I'm looking at it, it looks like sacrifice the artifact, or sacrifice the KCI, go grab Ugin's Nexus. It will enter. Ultron will require 2 mana to be paid, of which there is 2 mana available. And then a copy comes in. And it's a legendary artifact, so you'll have to sacrifice one of them. Instead of it being put in the graveyard, it is exiled, and an extra turn is made. Well, I guess the token will never be put into exile, so I'm not sure how that gets there without a KCI. Well, it looks like we'll have to find out. We will just figure it out together. This is a little new to me. That's why we're here. We're here to watch. If all we did was sleeve up 100 cards and put them out on the table and talk about them, we'd have no fun. And part of the fun is playing the games. And wading through all the stacks pieces that one of your friends plays that makes you not want to play with them anymore. Like a Cursed Totem. So here we go. Ugin Nexus. In play. Combat damage. Oh, correction. Looks like we have the Ultron triggered ability of pay 2 mana, of which I think that was done with the Ancient Tune, which I believe was untapped just prior. Yep, 4 combat damage resolved. Ugin's Nexus hanging out. The 2 mana was to copy KCI. That's so good. Why is it? This deck is so good. So KCI comes back. KCI comes back. There is another KCI from the Ultron. Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How will we get through this? Is the question. Looks like there will be a pass of the turn with just an Ugin's Nexus hanging out on the board. I honestly don't know what's stopping him from winning, but I also have never played this deck, the Iron Man deck. So we'll pass over to David, the first turn 5 of the turn cycle, up in the top left-hand corner of your screen. It was like Bon Jovi living on a prayer, hoping this game doesn't end here so he can continue to just beat the crowd into submission and just figure out a way to win the game. 7 mana made off the cradle will activate Thrasios. Scry to the top? I don't know what happened there. Potentially didn't look at it and decided he didn't want to do it. Because we do miracle draws around here. Oh, that's right. The Thrasios cannot be activated because of the curse scroll. Right. So, a little bit of a blunder there going to the turn. But Here comes in a Temple Garden. Tapped. No shock. 23 life. I already have the life total here. Not that the deck particularly cares about life total, but it's not fun to be at 20. Let's see. Deserted Temple, Cradle, making looks like 13. So the 3 mana dorks, Sowing Mycospawn, 3 actual creatures in play, so that makes 7. 7, 6, 13. Looks like we're talking about the Ugin's Nexus. We'll listen to the team a little bit. Trying to see the sequence of events here, but like I suggested before, I think the Iron Man 4th seat player does have this one locked up. Second treasure, sack the treasure for a Vexing Bauble. That might be sort of the killer here. Looks like Robert does have it locked up. I'd be fair to say. Again, with just it seems to me just being infinite turns with the Ugin's Nexus. There's one of the 2 red cards that David is playing here, and Gutshot making a sweet appearance here. Trying to draw cards for the fish player to potentially deal with this. I mean, again, a Silence is here, a Flusterstorm is here, but they don't really matter. Silence plus Fluster on the Silence in order to draw more cards. So there's 1 draw and 2 draw. Yeah, I mean, this Esoteric Duplicator kind of did all of the heavy lifting of the game, in my opinion. I mean, leading out on an early KCI, the Esoteric Duplicator. I mean, even though these decks differed in how they were going about it, the either the Staff of Domination and Aetherflux or the Mystic Forge, in the way these 2 decks differed. Once again, just listening in, trying to figure out if there is a way to stop it here. Does not seem to be the case. Bob continuing to chain these Iron Man triggers for more advantage in play with the game seemingly locked up here. But let's continue to watch, see how it goes. So searching for a 1-drop here. Looks like a Peter Parker's camera. If you're not familiar, you can copy triggered or activated abilities you control. So, little Strionic Resonator, 2 mana, tap it. You can use it 3 times. I think at this point it's more just trying to find removal for some amount of blockers to just continue getting in there with Iron Man. It seems to be the only trouble that is had right now, is my guess. Kiri, a flyer, a couple of Restoration Angels, and a Jackdaw Savior from the Avatar player. So potentially getting Sewer Valence Cam from making the treasure, sacrificing the treasure. Get Sewer Valence Cam, which can tap creatures in order to tap down the blockers. Instead, we'll grab a different card. Plus Mana Vault. And another 4 damage coming across to David. Me personally, Bob is on the Sewer Valence Cam, so again, it's hard because our players aren't necessarily saying what the playing it out is for here. If Bob is practically presenting infinite turns, although very clearly no ability to block here, right? Or no ability to get into all of our cast of characters. Continuing to get in against David and to probably Lamar shortly thereafter, as no flyers on board. But again, the Restoration Angels and Jackdaw Saviors over on Josh's board, they do present quite a problem. Declaring attacks. That could be a Strionic Resonator. Couldn't tell you from that art. Ain't gonna lie to you. That is in fact a Shrionic Resonator. Okay. So, copy on the Iron Man trigger. 2 treasures. Looks like at least 1 Shrionic Resonator down. Yeah, personally, I fail to see what the issue is, because the Sewer Valence Cam has to tap down 3 or 4 creatures, depending on what the clone is, right? Restoration Angel plus clone. Metalworker for 1,000,000 mana. Yeah, sure. Sacrifice the Peter Parker's camera. Another no, that's a 1-drop. Another 1-drop here for a 2-drop exactly. So, looks like that's a Chrome Dome. Other artifact creatures get +1/+0, and you can pay 5 mana, create a token that's a copy of an artifact you control. That token gains haste. I guess really doubling down on this here extra turn stuff. Maybe just looking for like a Staff of Domination. We'll get the turn to untap. Here we go. In for 4. Or correction 5 with Chrome Dome. I'll put David 2. Potentially kills him on commander damage, because I believe that David was at 16 prior to the 16 commander damage from our Seat 4 Iron Man. Mere Retriever. Is 1 grab off of the Vexing Bauble. Well, potentially not. Yeah, right. Just kind of looking here for what the end game is. Again, I do think that should be 5. I believe that pink sorted creature is Chrome Dome, which buffs the Iron Man to 5. So, not that I am confident that it matters. I'm confident that it doesn't. In fact, the opposite. We'll go searching once again. Looks like the Vexing Bauble to 2 CMCs, so we'll see if there's any 2 CMC artifacts out here. Maybe a Reality Chip could be the grab. Instead, we have generic looking magic cards. So, I mean, I guess that works. Looks like that's a Staff of Domination. One of the Brothers War versions. David scoops it up as he is, in fact, dead to the last Iron Man attack. So, here comes a Metalworker. So we're going to continue getting in with the Iron Man here. Over at our other Iron Man player, a little Iron Man of Violence, Word to Civil War. The Avengers movie, great movie. Again, even if like the Staff of Domination is here, right? The Staff of Domination can tap creatures. I'm not really sure what the point is here. Like what we're getting to. Because the only thing that I can foresee is the fact that there are flyers on Josh's board in the top right hand corner, or Avatar player, or Avatar Aang. Aang at the Crossroads is the commander name. So we'll really just have to see sort of what the plan is here. Looks like maybe taking some extra turns with no attackers. And it looks like we're copying using Chrome Dome with a ton of mana to draw more cards. That Vision Quest, I think, is a new card added from the Spider-Man set. So that will search for through Library and Graveyard for an artifact creature with X or less and put it into play with some amount of counters on it. And if X is 4 or greater, it will gain haste. But problem becomes if you're not able to get through the... Okay, I was going to say, if you're not able to get through the flyers, you still have to find a way to get there. But looks like the way to get there was a walking ballista. So, that seems to be all that she wrote, folks. A very solid positioning win. I mean, a lot of the way that win took place was because of very solid positioning, very solid game planning by Bob in our 4th seat. So, just like our last event, we have a very high percentage of 4th seat wins, which is very good for the format, in my personal opinion. And also just very fun to watch. Definitely the underdog seat as it is, but something to keep myself entertained personally, and I hope it does for you too.